Hello everyone and welcome back guys to a brand new video, and today we're here for something a little bit different. Now this is sort of F1 2018 content, sort of just a little look into the classic cars, because for those of you that have been around this channel for quite a while now, you will know I'm quite a fan overall of the classic cars, in F1 2017 and F1 2018. So in today's video we're going to have a look at all of them, and I'm sort of just going to explain sort of their historical sort of importance over the course of Formula 1. So we start off then with this 1972 Team Lotus 72D, which actually won the 1972 Drivers' and Constructors' title after what it appears to me, obviously I wasn't unfortunately alive around to witness this car, Emerson Fittipaldi pretty much carried that team. His teammate David Walker didn't score a single point, whilst Emerson Fittipaldi was able to win 5 races, got 8 podiums on the whole. And yeah, they were able to win the 1972 Constructors' Championship on 61 points. Emerson Fittipaldi as well obviously won the Drivers' World Championship with that car as well. And obviously that was back in an era where really sort of cars weren't so evolved every single year. So a very, very impressive feat on the whole considering that car. Next up then is probably one of the most, two of the most historically famous Formula 1 cars of all time. But first of all, we're going to have a look at the 1976 Ferrari 312 T2. Now, it actually didn't drive for a complete season. The Ferrari team actually had to use the original 312 T for the first 3 rounds of the season, which, in all fairness, they did win all 3 races. By the end of the season, though, between their 2 drivers, they had wrapped up 6 race victories, 5 of those coming from Niki Lauda, and then Clay Regazzoni, I've probably butchered that name, was actually able to win 1 Grand Prix as well. It was one of sort of those weird seasons where a team won the Constructors' Championship, but obviously not the Drivers' Championship, as we all well know. James Hunt was able to win that. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. But yeah, the 312 T2 was actually still able to wrap up the Constructors' World Championship that season with 83 points to its name. And next up then, obviously, if you have got the the Ferrari, you must have as well with it the McLaren M4-23D. Obviously, James Hunt's 1976 championship winning car, 5 Grand Prix victories, actually only 7 podiums as well in that season, as well as 5 retirements on the whole. Obviously, he was able to win the Drivers' World Championship against Niki Lauda, obviously after Niki's horrific crash at the Nürburgring. It was one of an absolutely fantastic recovery to get back into Formula 1. And, recently he's also had a lung surgery as well, a lung transplant even. So obviously we do wish him the best of luck with a speedy recovery as well. But yeah, James Hunt was able to win the 1976 Drivers' World Championship. Obviously the team did only come second in the Constructors with 74/75 points. Not really 100% too sure how that works as well. But yeah, let's move on then. Obviously, that was quite an iconic, battle. Obviously, Rush has sort of really been able to make that one very well known nowadays. But then we move on to the 1978 Team Lotus 79. So next up then is the 1978 Team Lotus 79. And this one is probably quite well known in America, because if I'm not mistaken, it is the only ever car that an American has won the World Championship with. It was used from round 6 of the F1 1978 season. In the 10 races it was able to do, it was able to claim 6 race victories on the whole, which meant it still was able to win the Drivers' and Constructors' World Championship, obviously, with Mario Andretti, as I said just a moment ago. His teammate, Ronnie Peterson, throughout most of the title, was able to get 1 win, as well as actually a very, very good podium record of 5 podiums from 7 races, and considering the other 2, he retired as well. It's not bad going on the whole for him as well. But that is the 1978 Team Lotus 79. In my opinion, actually one of the best looking cars of all time. Next up then is the 1979 Ferrari 312 T4. Obviously 3 years on from the T2. And this one was driven by Jody Scheckter and Gilles Villeneuve. Obviously 2 very, very iconic names in the world of Formula 1, and actually a very, very successful car on the whole, as well as one of its key features of being very, very reliable as well. Obviously, Jody Scheckter was able to win the Drivers' World Championship with 3 wins to his name, but his teammate Gilles Villeneuve actually also took 3 victories as well. Both of them, I think, getting at least 3 more podiums on the whole. I think Jody Scheckter took 4 second places, as well as... Jody Scheckter took 3 second places. Gilles Villeneuve was able to take home 4. But yeah, Jody Scheckter was able to win the Drivers' World title, with Ferrari able to win the Constructors' World Championship as well in that season. But that was sort of the end of the 312 era as well, and the last sort of real hurrah with that car. Next up then of sort of the new classic cars to the F1 2018 game is the 1982 McLaren Mp4-1B. And this car actually didn't face as much success as most of the cars on this list, but I'm pretty certain it is most famous for being the first ever Formula 1 car to have a single-piece monocoque, if I'm not mistaken. But it was driven by John Watson and Niki Lauda. They were able to claim 4 race victories between the pair of them, only second in the end in the Constructors' World Championship on the whole there. So unfortunate that they weren't able to wrap up the world title that season. But 2, in my opinion, very iconic drivers. John Watson is someone that I've never really sort of known in Formula 1 in sort of weird ways. You sort of see him a lot, but you don't really know too much personally about him on the whole as well. But obviously, Niki Lauda and John Watson each able to take 2 wins in that car as well. And as I said, that was sort of the last of the really sort of classic cars for F1 2018. And then we move into the 1988 McLaren Mp4-4. In my opinion, one of the best looking cars of all time. And that was obviously driven by Alain Prost. And obviously this car well known for being the most dominant car in Formula 1 history, able to take home every race victory but one in its 1988 campaign. They had the best car, the best 2 drivers. The only race they didn't win was actually the Italian Grand Prix, which the Tifosi were given a little bit of a rest from the McLaren domination that season. But yeah, Ayrton Senna as well, obviously able to win the Drivers' World Championship in that car. The team taking 199 points is certainly not by going on the whole. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 1-2s over the space of the 16 race season as well. It was really... It's highly unlikely we'll ever see a car as dominant as this one in Formula 1. But then we move on then to the 1991 McLaren Mp4-Six. And as well, one of the other, in my opinion, best looking Formula 1 cars of all time. As you can just tell, in modern day Formula 1, there's a lot of development that goes on between seasons. And, well, the 1980s/90s was a bit of a different time. And once again, this one was driven by Ayrton Senna. But obviously, this was in the time after Alain Prost had left for Ferrari. So he was joined by Gerhard Berger in the second car there. Obviously, Ayrton Senna able to take home 7 race victories from that season. Gerhard 1 extra one on top of that. And obviously, that was the season where Ayrton Senna famously crashed with Alain Prost at the Japanese Grand Prix, guaranteeing himself to be the 1991 Formula 1 World Champion. That car took home 139 points on the whole, and obviously the Drivers' and Constructors' World Championship once again, and obviously was really the end of an era in Formula 1, because obviously Williams would come in next season with the 1992 Williams FW14B. One of, again, the most dominant cars of all time. Obviously one of the most sophisticated Formula 1 cars of all time as well, with its active suspension, which really meant that it dominated the field entirely. Probably the one downfall to that car, though, was actually the car itself. It was so sophisticated that it did sometimes struggle with that reliability on the whole. But Nigel Mansell was able to dominate the season. He took home 9 race victories on the whole, 3 second places. And then from the other 4 rounds, he unfortunately retired as well. His teammate, Riccardo Patrese, was able to take home 1 race victory as well as 6 second places as well. So a very dominant car on the whole. Obviously, Mansell was able to take home the Drivers' World Championship, and the team was able to take home the Constructors' World Championship as well, with 164 points to their name. And it's probably one of the other seasons that was really able to rival McLaren's dominance in a car just 4 years ago. And then we move on to the last of the V12 era, then the 1995 Ferrari 412 T2. Obviously, a bit of a name change from the 312 that came around quite a few years prior, but still a almost, in my opinion, actually quite a good looking Ferrari on the whole. But one again that, if I'm not mistaken, was actually not able to. This car was obviously famous as well for gifting Jean Alesi his one ever Formula 1 race victory, actually on his 34th birthday, if I'm not mistaken as well. But yeah, the car only was able to come through for 3rd in the Constructors' standings that season with 73 points. But as I said, it's kind of iconic because obviously it was the last of the roaring V12 era of Formula 1 as well. So obviously very, very important car as well. Obviously, I think it was Gerhard Berger as well was actually able to take home 6 third places over the course of that season as well. So when the car was breaking down, which it did quite a lot as well, it was actually, a very, very decent front pack runner as well, but just very, very unlikely to be able to take home. Then we move on then to the 1996 Williams FW18, and obviously this car, quite famously known for giving Damon Hill his Formula 1 world title, as well as Jacques Villeneuve, obviously a lot of controversy around him, the fact obviously he was just thrown in to a Formula 1 seat, from huge success in kart, if I'm not mistaken, but then obviously just was able to win the 1997 world title, but a lot of people weren't happy, the fact that he was instantly just given a really, really high up seat in Formula 1. But that car was able to take home 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 victories over the course of the 1996 season. On the whole, a very, very dominant car. Was able to, obviously, as I said, win the Drivers' and Constructors' World title with Damon Hill and Jacques Villeneuve at the helm. So obviously a very, very good car, as well as also had a Renault V10 engine, which, if you know me well, I'm quite a big fan of the V10 engines on the whole, and that really sort of kick-started the V10 era of Formula 1. Next up then is the 1998 McLaren Mp4-13, and as well, one of my favourite cars, one of the best looking Formula 1 cars of all time, in my opinion. And this was sort of the last hurrah before Ferrari went on to obviously dominate the next 5 seasons of Formula 1. Obviously driven by David Coulthard and Mika Hakkinen, which obviously go on to become the world champion that year. Mika was able to take home 8 race victories, all in sets of 2, funnily enough, over the course of the 16 race season, with David Coulthard only able to take home 1 race victory at the San Marino Grand Prix, but 6 second places on the whole to Mika's 2 seconds over the course of the season as well. That car obviously renowned for Mika Hakkinen being able to take home the Drivers' World Championship, being able to beat Michael Schumacher. One of the only drivers that a lot of people felt was actually able to beat Michael Schumacher on raw pace alone, on merit. Never mind the car that he had underneath him. But yeah, that car, 156 points, both world titles once again. And then we move in to the Ferrari dominance era with the 2002 Ferrari F2002. This car, unfortunately, couldn't actually be used in the opening 2 rounds of the season because, unfortunately, it just wasn't ready yet for Formula 1. But yeah, this car, one of the most dominant, again, of all time, obviously with the legendary pairing of Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello, was able to win 4, 6, 9, 10, 11, 14 of the 14 of the 15 races, if I'm not mistaken, that it was able to do. Only couldn't win at the Monaco Grand Prix there, with Michael Schumacher still coming through for P2 overall. 221 points at the end of that season was obviously Michael Schumacher able to win the Drivers' World Championship and the team able to comfortably dominate in the Constructors' World title as well. But yeah, once again, one of the most dominant cars of all time. I think it was unrestricted engine testing as well, which obviously meant that, well, the engines were ridiculously strong throughout the entirety of the season. And then we move in to one of the brand new classic cars for the new game, the Williams FW25. This car was obviously driven by Juan Pablo Montoya as well as Ralf Schumacher, and overall, quite a successful car, able to take home 4 race victories over the course of the season. But some races it was very, very strong through the middle part of the season, but then also started to tail off a little bit towards the end of the year. And unfortunately, 2 really, really poor results at the end of the season meant that Montoya was not able to challenge Michael Schumacher for the Formula 1 world title. But yeah, both drivers able to take home 2 race victories. Juan Pablo Montoya, obviously known for being ruthlessly fast and, well, very, very aggressive on and off the racetrack as well, was able to claim quite a few podium places in that car as well. Whilst Ralf Schumacher, actually very, very consistent in that car, could not make the Italian Grand Prix, which meant that Marc Genet was able to fill in that slot. But then we move back to, once again, another dominant Ferrari, the 2004 Ferrari F2004. This one was sort of Ferrari's last real swan song from the V10 era. Obviously, the last car they were able to win a world title with, and what a dominant car it was again. There was a little bit of a scare from the Ferrari team after 2003 that they might not be able to take home the Drivers' and Constructors' World title again very, very comfortably. So they worked hard, and in 2004 they won 15 of the 18 Grand Prix. Obviously, Michael Schumacher, if I'm not mistaken, taking home 12 race victories, which was, I think, a record for quite a long time. Obviously, but then Sebastian Vettel was able to win in, well, I think he won 13 races in the space of the 2013 season as well. But obviously that car, yeah, once again was able to win the Drivers and Constructors World title with Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello at the hull. Rubens taking home 2 race victories, but I think all but 4 races he was actually able to finish on the podium as well, with Schumacher only finishing off the podium in 3 Grand Prix. And then we move on to Fernando Alonso's 2006 Renault R26 Formula 1 car. Obviously, this car was able to gift him his 2nd World Drivers' Championship on the whole, in the first ever V8 era. Obviously, one of the only actual times in modern times where the V8 was actually used with traction control on the whole. But a very, very interesting car. Obviously, aerodynamics has sort of played quite a key part, as well as the fact I think this thing revved up to nearly 21,000 RPM as well, which obviously, if you've been able to give it a go in the 2017 game, I would highly, highly recommend, because it is an absolutely fantastic sounding car on the whole. But yeah, Fernando Alonso was able to take home 7 race victories with this car. His teammate Giancarlo Fisichella as well, able to take home 1 race victory at the Malaysian Grand Prix. The team taking home 1st place in the Drivers' and Constructors' World Championship with 206 points over the 18-round season there. And it was really, really looking like Ferrari might have been able to bounce back. But unfortunately not in 2006, but they certainly came back in 2007 with the 2007 Ferrari F2007. This season obviously being known for Lewis Hamilton's first ever Formula 1 World Championship season. And it was looking like he would almost be able to claim the Drivers' World Championship, the first ever as a rookie. And if he'd been able to do that, it would have probably been quite likely he would have remained the only world champion rookie in Formula 1. But yeah, Kimi Räikkönen was able to cover right at the end of the season with, I think it was 6 podiums in the final 6 races to sneak past both Lewis and Fernando Alonso to claim P1 in the 2007 world title. The team as well, obviously able to take home the constructors after McLaren were obviously famously banned after the whole Spygate incident as well, which obviously fined them £100 million on the whole. But Räikkönen obviously was joined by Felipe Massa in that car as well, who was able to take home 3 race victories over the course of the season to Kimi's 6. But then we move on to the 2008 McLaren Mp4-23, obviously renowned for being Lewis Hamilton's Formula 1 2008 championship winning car on the whole. Obviously a very, very strong return from McLaren. This was sort of the really, really it was sort of a small but iconic Formula 1 era between Ferrari and McLaren. 2 cars right at the very, very top of their game with, 4 of the best drivers in Formula 1. Obviously McLaren with Heikki Kovalainen joining Lewis Hamilton there. He was able to take home his 1 pole position and his 1 ever Formula 1 Grand Prix victory at the Hungaroring, obviously, after Felipe Massa famously had an engine failure with, I think, 2 laps to go of that race on the whole. But as I said, Lewis Hamilton able to wrap up the World Championship in just his 2nd ever season competing in Formula 1. Heikki Kovalainen not able to, be as consistent, which meant that Ferrari were able to take home the Constructors' Championship over the course of that season. But that was sort of the end then of that small era, and then we moved to the Brawn BGP 001, obviously an iconic car, the last of sort of the new F1 2018 classic cars, obviously the most modern of the 2018 classic cars as well. I've actually got a video of this car on my channel as well, obviously if you're interested in that, make sure you go check it out. 3 laps even, around the Monaco Grand Prix circuit on the whole. But yeah, this car obviously very, very dominant throughout the early stages of the 2009 World Championship. 5 of the first 6 races, if I'm not mistaken, that he was able to take home on the whole. Obviously, 4 of those 5 races, well, if I'm not mistaken, by Jenson Button as well. But obviously, he was able to go through and win the Drivers' World Championship as well. After it looked almost like towards the end of the season that Red Bull even were able to really, really start to mount a championship challenge there. But Jenson, it was a little too late for the Red Bull team as well, which obviously meant that Jenson was able to take home the Drivers and Brawn were able to take home the Constructors' World Championship in their only ever season of Formula 1, which obviously a very, very impressive record on the whole. But then last, but certainly not least in this almost 20-minute long video now, is the 2010 Red Bull RB6. Obviously a very, very iconic car in its own right. Obviously to take home Red Bull's first ever Drivers' World Championship with Sebastian Vettel, as well as the Constructors for the Red Bull team as well. Obviously a very, very iconic year of Formula 1. 4 drivers went into the final race of the season with a good shot of winning the World Championship. Although, you know, Lewis Hamilton's was slightly slim chances, 24 points off he needed. Both Red Bulls to retire and Fernando Alonso to be taken with them on the whole. But yeah, Sebastian, obviously the only time he actually was able to lead in the 2010 World Championship, which is obviously the most important point after the end of the final Grand Prix as well. But hopefully, you know, you guys have enjoyed this video on the whole. Make sure you like and subscribe if you want to see more F1 2018 content on this channel. I am, you know, thinking about doing something with the 2018 classic cars as well for a future series, so make sure you'll subscribe for that. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. A little bit different, a lot of information on the whole, but something I really wanted to do, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time for a brand new video.